Welcome to the GCN Racing News Show. This week on the show, news about another revised UCI calendar. Will Colombian riders be able to make it over to Europe in time for the Tour de France? And we discuss who earns what in the pro peloton. First up this week, news of a new team, Ciclismo Mundial, a newly formed continental women's team that includes the biggest cyclocross stars in the sport and world champion Celine de Carmen Avelado. The team aims to give riders a year-round racing programme and even consider participating in the future edition of the Women's Paris-Roubaix. 2 weeks after revealing the revised 2020 calendars for the UCI World Tour and Women's World Tour, with a view to restart the cycling season in context of the coronavirus pandemic. The UCI has announced the 2020 UCI International Road Calendar for other classes of events. Established in consultation with the concerned national federation, the revised 2020 UCI International Road Calendar now includes men's and women's races for the following classes: UCI Pro Series, Class 1, Class 2, UCI Nations Cup, Under 23 and Junior categories and criteriums. In total, new dates were found for 91 events, 61 for elite men, 19 for elite women, 6 for under 23 men, 4 for junior men and 1 for junior women. JENSKEUKELEIRE of EF Education was put through his paces last week. Check this incredibly cute post out. He took us through the race recon and race over on Instagram. It wasn't to be an easy race for him though. His son just managed to outsprint him in the last few metres of the race. An upcoming Paris-Roubaix winner, I'd say, or even a track sprinter. Egan Bernal, Nairo Quintana, Roberto Urán and other Colombian riders' hopes of returning to Europe to ride the Tour de France depend on them securing a special dispensation from the Colombian government, after the South American country joined its neighbours in grounding all international passengers' flights until August the 31st due to the coronavirus pandemic. While the tour is due to start on August the 29th, hopefully they can secure special permission to travel to Europe. According to the GCN website, 22 Colombian riders compete in the Men's World Tour, with a total of 111 professional riders registered with the UCI. Most are believed to be currently in Colombia, while Giro d'Italia winner Richard Carapaz is in nearby Ecuador. Team Pursuit Olympic champion ELINORBARKER learned that her discreet nature breaks aren't so discreet anymore. A local pub put up a sign warning cyclists that the pub actually had CCTV in the pub grounds. It's probably worth finding a new spot now, Eleanor. This week, thanks to a report published in the French newspaper L'Equipe, we learned who the top earners are in men's professional cycling and just how much money they actually make. Here's a list of the highest. Peter Sagan on €5.5 million, Chris Froome on €4.5 million, Geraint Thomas on €3.5 million, Vincenzo Nibali on €3 million, and Egan Bernal on €2.7 million. It's not exactly breaking news that Team Ineos have the most money in the sport of cycling, and they spend a lot of it on their riders' salary. But when you see it as explicitly as this, they have 5 of the top 10 earners in the entire sport. It really hits home the mammoth task that other teams face when they consider taking them on at a Grand Tour. It's noteworthy that Jumbo-Visma, the team largely expect to take on Team Ineos at the Tour de France this year, with their trio of GC riders. Tom Dumoulin, Primož Roglič and Steven Kruijswijk actually don't have any riders in the top 10 of this list, although on the longer list they do have Roglič in 12th place and Dumoulin in 15th. The fact that Chris Froome is currently on a whopping €4.5 million salary is interesting given his rumoured move away from Team Ineos. Froome's contract is due to expire at the end of the year, and as we mentioned on last week's show, his age coupled with his injury troubles meant he is highly unlikely to win the Tour de France again. It's hard not to imagine that Team Ineos offered him a new contract with a significant pay cut. He didn't like it and has now put himself in the shop window to see if he can get himself more elsewhere. Geraint Thomas has said in the past, in a column he wrote for GQ magazine, that money doesn't necessarily buy you success in cycling. And while in theory, if Team Ineos had paid, say, Dan Lloyd €4.5 million, he definitely would not have won the Tour de France. or any race for that matter.
I was a bit worried it wouldn't fit still, but it's fine.
But in practice, money isn't squandered like that. It's used to pay for the best riders. So sorry Geraint, but it has actually been proven that in sport, money does buy you success. Illustrated by the fact that 5 Team Ineos riders in that list are 3 Tour de France winners, a Giro winner and a world champion. Team Ineos also have a further 2 riders who have finished top 10 in a Grand Tour, and 5 riders on top of those who have finished a Grand Tour in the top 20. That's 11 riders in total who have finished top 20 in a Grand Tour. 11! It seems like a lot considering they only get to pick 8 of them for any given Grand Tour. But as usual on the GCN Racing news show, it got us thinking, is it actually a lot? Is it actually more than anyone else? There are loads of riders who have finished top 20 in a Grand Tour, right? So we put the GCN stat nerds to work again, and they reliably informed me that yes, it is a lot. Here's a breakdown of the 2020 teams who have the most number of riders who've done it. So Team Ineos have 3 more than the next most, and more than double the amount of most World Tour teams. Again, interesting to note that expected rivals Jumbo-Visma only have 5. Now of course this comes with caveats. For instance, we don't know yet if Pavel Sivakov or Theo Gegenhardt would prove to be a better domestique for a GC leader than someone who has never finished top 20 in a Grand Tour, like say Tony Martin or Laurent Depluse. But it has given another indicator of GC strength in depth that other teams are up against when it comes to taking on the might of Team Ineos, and the type of squad they can gather with the buckets of money they have. While the money these guys are on isn't a patch on what top stars in many other sports make, the figures are rather eye-watering when you consider the women's side of cycling. Take Bigla Katusha for example, a team which has been struggling to pay its riders and is facing the likely scenario that it will fold. Their entire team budget is believed to be less than $1 million. Peter Sagan on his own makes more than 5 times that every year. It's not Peter Sagan's fault, nice work if you can get it Peter, but it just highlights a massive imbalance within sport. It's now time for a poll in the GCN app. Should there be a salary cap? Yes, buying success is too easy, or no, we shouldn't be discouraging more money in the sport. Let us know what you think in the GCN app. That's it for the GCN Racing News Show this week. Thank you everybody for watching, I hope you enjoyed and see you next week.